Okay, good evening. I would like to call to order the January 25, 2021 Lake Washington School Board meeting. Please let the record reflect that all board members are present and participating remotely. All meeting participants will also be joining the meeting remotely in alignment with the current proclamation issued by Governor Inslee. And this board meeting will be live streamed and viewable on the district's website. If you are unable to live stream the meeting, viewers can call 425-936-2813. The conference ID is 37127 to listen to the meeting. I will now entertain a motion to approve the January 25, 2021 agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Director Sage and seconded by Director Carlson that we approve the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We have two recognitions tonight. Dr. Holman, will you please lead us through that?
Yes, I will. My board docs just closed on me, so I'm just getting it pulled back up real quick. Let me grab the agenda. There we go. Okay, so tonight we have two recognitions. First is to really recognize our board of directors. And so annually, January is School Board Recognition Month, and so not only does the governor put out a proclamation, but we as a district also want to recognize the five of you and thank you for your service. And so I want to go ahead and start by reading Governor Inslee's proclamation, which is also in your board docs. And so the proclamation states, whereas the mission of Washington's public school system is to assure that all students achieve at high levels and possess the knowledge and skills to be responsible members of a democratic society who enjoy productive and satisfying lives. And whereas Washington's 295 locally elected school boards and 9 elected educational service district boards are the core of the public education governance system in our state. And whereas the districts and regions they lead serve more than 1 million students, have a combined annual budget of over $15 billion, and employ approximately 120,000 people. And whereas school directors play a crucial role in promoting student learning and achievement by creating a vision, establishing policies and budgets, and setting clear standards of accountability for all involved. And whereas school directors are directly accountable to the residents in their districts and regions, serving as a vital link between members of the community and their schools. And whereas school directors and educational service districts provide a passionate voice of advocacy for public schools and the welfare of school-aged children. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize school directors as outstanding volunteers and champions for public education. Now therefore, I, Jay Inslee, the Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim January 2021 as School Board Recognition Month in Washington, and I encourage all people in our state to join me in this special observance. And that was brought to us on January 19th, 2021 by Governor Jay Inslee. I also want to do my own bit of recognition, and let me go ahead and share my screen here. As a school system, we rely on our board of directors for their leadership, their oversight, And the five of you have been serving together for a period of time, which is wonderful because it provides continuity, it provides history, but also a number of you have just joined the board just within the last few years. And so those new ideas, that fresh view on the work we have and the work we're doing is essential and critical to the ongoing nurturing and support of our school district. And so when I think about board service, serving on a school board is a challenging role that requires leadership, vision, and a deep commitment to multiple stakeholders. Serving on a school board is a crucial aspect of our democracy. And as you all know, my dissertation was done on board governance and board service. And so primary in our democracy is this aspect of locally elected school board members truly being the leaders of their local schools. And as an elected official, school boards are charged with the success of the children and young adults in the community. Board members are locally elected, non-salaried public officials entrusted with the task of providing direction and governance. When I think about your responsibilities, to just name a few, I think primary in your work and hopefully our work together, it's about ensuring a creation of a shared vision. It's about developing plans and goals that reflect the common values and core beliefs really of the school community. It's about setting sound written policy. And as we know in our governance structure, that policy is as critical as anything we do because that truly is what provides direction for our organization. It's about hiring, setting goals, and evaluating the superintendent. It's about overseeing the employment processes through really good and quality policy to help provide direction. It's about monitoring and evaluating the financial health of the district. And it's about using just really high quality, innovative two-way communication strategies to be transparent, to build trust and support, and to truly understand the stakeholders that you're serving, to understand their voice. And it's also about acting as a governance body. As you all know, your power is in the voice of you as a group, working together, understanding issues, developing policy, and enacting those policies in a manner together, the five of you, of one voice, one body. And so to honor you as school board members this year, this evening, we do have a set of literature that we're going to ask you to look through and make selections, and we'll actually be donating books in your honor to an elementary, a middle, and a high school in your name. In those books that you select will be a placard like this to indicate that this particular book that you've selected is being donated to that particular school in honor of School Board Recognition Month, so that recognition and that honor truly does live beyond just this one moment. And so with that, I, as superintendent, just want to say that I truly appreciate the relationship we all have. I appreciate your feedback, your advice, your comments about the work, and really the things that you truly are interested in. And so with that, so excited to recognize the five of you. And I know Diane will follow up with some of that information to get your selections, and then we'll get those books donated to our schools in your honor. So with that, we recognize you tonight. Thank you. And if we all were in person, we'd probably take a picture right now. I think that's typically apropos in what happens.
I took a screenshot.
Yeah, everyone turn your camera on. And so we have one other piece of recognition this evening. And that is our proclamation around Career and Technical Education Month, which is upcoming in February. And so, Eric, is there someone on the board that would like to read that proclamation?
Oh, sorry, I did not delegate somebody ahead of time. Does,
Looks like Siri has it up already.
Excellent.
Siri, you're muted.
Let's have Siri read it then. Thank you for doing that, Director Blaisner. I don't know if you've agreed yet, but thank you for doing it anyway.
So that oh, there we go. I'm not muted anymore.
There you go.
No. All right. Now this is our proclamation on career and technical education. A very important component of our education, all the hands-on and providing opportunity to really know. So we really do value this work that goes in. I'm just trying to make it big enough that I can see it. So the proclamation is, whereas career and technical education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness, and whereas students in career and technical education programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase student engagement and achievement, and whereas career and technical education provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their educational experience, which enables them to make informed and beneficial decisions about their academic coursework, as well as pursuit of established programs of study and career pathways. And whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with available careers in critical and growing CTE-related fields, including healthcare, energy, advanced manufacturing, and information technology. And whereas career and technical education prepares students for these and other fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education and lead to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials. And whereas ensuring that employers have access to a qualified workforce is a crucial step in ensuring productivity among the business and industry communities, as well as continued American economic growth and global competitiveness. And whereas Lake Washington School District has approximately 8,677 students participating in 104 different career and technical education course options taught by 138 career and technical education teachers. Therefore, the Board of Directors do hereby proclaim February 1st through the 28th of 2021 as Career and Technical Education Month in the Lake Washington School District.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Blaisner.
And Eric, if I can just recognize our Director of College and Career Readiness, Danita Arimas. She provides excellent leadership and oversight for the Career and Technical Education program. Extremely visionary and passionate about making community connections, making business and industry connections to really make our CTE programs as beneficial and viable for our students as possible. So I also want to recognize her and her whole team that puts a tremendous amount of effort in to make those programs excellent for students.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. The next item on our agenda is public comment. Due to the coronavirus, all board meetings are being held remotely. Please note that there will be no in-person public comment to ensure social distancing. The Board of Directors welcomes the public to the business meetings of the board and encourages community engagement. The board dedicates 30 minutes of these meetings to hear from the public during a public comment period. Currently, there are 3 ways to submit public comment. You may do so in writing, you can give televised public comment, or you can provide recorded oral public comment. At this time, we have 2 televised public comments for our meeting tonight. And we received numerous, maybe it looks like about 18 written comments for the meeting tonight. We'll start with the 2 individuals who are giving their time to join the board tonight to provide televised public comment. I will ask Christy Bergquist, followed by Lisa Guthrie, to provide televised public comment. Ms. Bergquist, I saw you were signed in earlier. Are you able to turn your camera on if you want to? But at a minimum, can you turn your mic?
I'm happy to do so.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Christy Bergquist, and I'm a kindergarten teacher at Horace Mann Elementary. I'm here to have my voice heard. First off, I'd like to say thank you, Dr. Holman and board, for taking a step back and reflecting on what I felt like, and a lot of teachers felt like, was a very rapid restart to the school year. I certainly wouldn't want your job, and I thank you for doing such a great one. And I know it's hard. I've reached out to colleagues, and I've had colleagues reach out to me about their concerns in returning to school face-to-face. Many teachers are just scared. Like me, they feel that we are so close to a vaccination that why can't we just wait until we've all been vaccinated? I feel like I have done such a good job to not contract COVID, and now I feel like I'm being thrown into the fire. That all the sacrifices I made over the past year to keep myself and my family safe and healthy is about to end, and yet we are so close to a vaccination. There have been more tears shed this year at my school than in all the 6 years I've been in the district. Teachers are tough and they do hard things, but they do those things with the students in mind. Last year, we were asked to teach remotely. It was tough, but we did it. This year, things were better planned out and we got better training, and there was definitely a path that had been carved for us. We followed that path. The district really stressed connection with students and families. Build a good sense of community. That's really important, is what we were told. So we did just that. We built a community with our kids over the computers. Not an easy or a quick process, but we did it because teachers do hard things for our students. Now that students are comfortable with us, they trust us, and we've built relationships with them, we're going to split them up and put them with new teachers. We worked so hard to build those relationships, and now for about 75 days of the remainder of school, these students, kindergarten through first grade, will now have to get acquainted with a new teacher and build new relationships once again. But to make matters worse, safety net teachers have also been taken away. Safety net teachers are so very special, especially during this time. They get to work with and build very special relationships with children who lack confidence, may have learning disabilities. I have a student who sees our amazing safety net teacher, and she looks forward to seeing her every day. I've heard her ask her dad, "Is it time for Mrs. Welch?" with excitement in her voice, and her dad has told me how she really looks forward to meeting with this small group and Mrs. Welch. Well, let me tell you, Mrs. Welch has had such an impact on this child that at the beginning of the year, this little girl had such little confidence. She knew very few letter names and sounds, and now she's excited to have a conversation, is building her confidence, and knows almost all her letter names and sounds. This girl has really bloomed, and I promise you, it wasn't just because of me. It wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for Mrs. Welch and Safety Net. But now Safety Net teachers are going away, and those students who need the most help are losing another teacher. I'm happy to say that this little girl will be coming in person, and I will get to keep her. But I worry about the students who lose their classroom teacher as well as their Safety Net teacher. Those are the students who need the most consistency. Remember, the district puts students' best interests in the forefront. But is this really in the best interest of students? What's going to happen when we have to close or quarantine due to the virus and students are back online? Is that in the best interest of students? I know we all want to go back. Remote teaching is hard, it really is. But is having students in class to sit in their seats for 3.5 hours normal? To not see a whole face? To not be able to partner read with a buddy? To not have free choice time and play or draw with friends? To not be able to run around with their friends at recess holding hands while going down the slide? This isn't normal. Nothing about this is normal or healthy. We're going to disrupt what is working. We're in a groove. To disrupt these 5 and 6-year-olds and turn their worlds upside down so they can go to school and sit. Trust me, I want to go to school too. But if this is what a student's day looks like, then clearly it isn't safe. So until we can get a vaccination for teachers and students to be safe, why are we risking having students in person for 75 days of school? Their lives, the lives of their families, my life and the lives of my families are so much more important than the 75 days of 5 and 6-year-olds sitting at a desk for 3.5 hours. I get that the economy needs to open, and to do that, we need to get kids in school. So I ask, challenge, and urge you as a school board and superintendent to push on the government to get teachers vaccinated before we go back to school. If they want the economy open, then they need to get teachers vaccinated before we open up. This is what's right for teachers, students, families, districts, communities, and the economy. Thank you for listening, and I challenge you to get your teachers vaccinated before we all go back.
Thank you, Ms. Bergquist. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. The next speaker we have tonight is Lisa Guthrie. Hello.
Hi, my name's Lisa Guthrie. I'm the parent of a kindergartner at Benjamin Rush Elementary. And I'm here to remind you that it's been 321 days since my child last set foot in a classroom. Last week's announcement, pushing out the K-1 return date by another 2 weeks, nearly broke me. To be honest, I've lost my faith in LWSD's willingness to return to in-person learning this school year. Every time it seems like you're getting close, there's another excuse, another delay. The last time you delayed in-person learning back in October, I nearly walked away from my 20-year career. I just couldn't see how I could appropriately support my child's education while keeping my job. And given the choice between those two things, it's not even a choice. My child comes first. Luckily, I was able to find a part-time work arrangement, which allows me to keep my foot in the door at my company. But the longer this goes on, the more I worry about the long-term impact of my career. I've been saying this for months. This is unsustainable. This is unsustainable. What's frustrating is that it's also unnecessary. A majority of Washington school districts now offer the option for in-person learning. Close to home, Mercer Island recently brought back its kindergartners and first graders. Riverview plans to do so next week without a vaccine. If they can do it, why can't LWSD? Study after study supports the safety of resuming in-person learning with appropriate mitigation strategies in place. One recent study looked at in-person learning in Washington as well as Michigan. In Washington, the study found that there was no increase in community transmission rates in districts bringing back under 75% of their students, just as LWSD plans to do. In Michigan, there was actually a small decrease in community transmission rates in some districts, perhaps because students traded higher risk social activities for the more controlled and safer environment of school. If they can do it, why can't LWSD? No more excuses, no more delays. Please get our kids back in classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guthrie. Thank you for joining us tonight and for being willing to come on camera and give public comment. Those are the two televised public comments we have tonight. We received, as I mentioned before, we received, I believe, about 14 written public comments. We don't have time to read all of them tonight, but I will read two aloud that are representative. I'll read three aloud that are representative of the comments that we received. The first is from Tara Pozo, a second, third grade Quest teacher. Ms. Pozo wrote, as a teacher in LWSD, I have been mostly very pleased with the district's attention to detail and care for the safety of its teachers. However, I have felt very concerned with the district's most recent choice to move back into in-person teaching so quickly. As per Washington vaccine schedule, I will not be able to be vaccinated until at least April, and this timeline is not uncommon with most teachers under the age of 50 on this schedule. Going back before April, when the cases in our region are higher than they were this summer, when the decision to go for remote learning for nearly all students doesn't make sense. Additionally, in our region, child care centers currently represent the third largest source of COVID outbreaks. Finally, I feel that our timeline for elementary school is too rushed. If there are issues with K-1 or adjustments that need to be made to the learning model to make it safer, will there still be time to do so before second and third grade returns? My sibling recently had a COVID scare in LA County where the hospitals are at a maximum capacity. I cannot tell you how frightening it was to know that they might have COVID, and if they needed intensive care, there was nowhere for them to go. The roommate had contracted the disease despite wearing masks consistently and only going out for short walks to the grocery store. Even when all precautions are in place, there is still a possibility of contracting this disease. Additionally, there's more contagious strain of COVID that is making its way through Europe, and many expect to be in the United States soon. Furthermore, I am currently in graduate school. My semester starts soon. I have requested to know if I will be teaching remotely or in person on February 18th by the 28th, which is the last day of ad drop. But as time passes, it looks less and less likely that I will know my teaching placement by the time I need to decide whether or not I can handle a class this quarter. I simply do not feel safe in our buildings right now, and I fear being forced to go back in person despite my request to remain remote. If I feel this way, I can only imagine how others who are more impacted by the disease must be feeling. I have experienced a high level of anxiety over the decision by the district since January 6th. That comment from Ms. Pozo is consistent with comments we also received from Kristen Wells, secondary teacher at Keller, Sahar Arfinzadeh, Caitlin Linaneka, an Inglewood middle school teacher, Shannon Bleak, a teacher and parent, Sarah Hubbard, a middle school teacher, Brittany Shoda, Jenny DeMay, Andrew Gustav, Hannah Martin, a second grade teacher at Meade, Iris Grass, a kindergarten teacher, Abigail Wellborn, a parent of Rockwell students, Jessica Sager, a parent of 2 Lakeview students, Jessica Cooper, an ASL teacher at Redmond High School. I apologize we're not able to read aloud, but the board has received all of those public comments, and thank you for taking the time to do that. I also will read aloud a public comment that we received from Kavi Mahesh. Apologies if I did not pronounce your name correctly. And they wrote, "Our high school kids are suffering in isolation. It is very important to give them hope by showing them a path to in-person schooling soon. This generation of kids are soon to be adults, and we want to take good care of their emotional and mental well-being. Can we please plan and prioritize getting high schoolers back in school? Other countries have done it. Other states have done it. We can do it too. Please give us a solid plan." And then the final public comment I'll read aloud tonight was from a second grade student, which I think is our first, from Brian Bleak, who actually wrote it. Oh, my camera's going to blur this out. Oh well, we had a very nice handwritten public comment that has been typed just for us. Mr. Bleak wrote, "Hi, my name is Brian Bleak. I wish that kids weren't going back to school, because then I would stay with my teacher who I really like. Also, I would stay with my friends. I feel sad that we have to make a choice." Thank you, Mr. Bleak, for writing us that public comment. And to thank you all who took the time to submit public comment. And all of those who submitted also wrote to the board over the last 2 weeks. This is amongst the highest we've received. And I've tried to at least respond to all of them saying, "We've received your message, thank you." And I can tell you the board has been closely reading and thinking hard about everything we've received. Just a reminder again that those who wish to give public comment can do so by submitting it by email to Diane Jenkins at the email address djenkins@lwsd.org by 3 p.m. on the date of the board meeting. If you wish to give televised comment like our 2 speakers did tonight, you can also do so by emailing Diane Jenkins at djenkins@lwsd.org. Please do that by 1 p.m. on the date of the board meeting, and a Microsoft Teams link will be shared with you to join the board meeting during public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Finally, you can we still have no one has taken us up on this yet, but you can dial 425-936-1257 and leave a voicemail message. I assume is how it works, that will be played during our meeting. That is our public comment for tonight. Thank you all who wrote. Director Carlson has something he would, I guess, touching on this, that he would like to read aloud briefly in response to those who wrote.
This is a short one because we received, in total, our 18 comments stretched to 30 pages in the PDF document. And that 30 pages is actually, I'd say, less than half of the public comment that we've received through direct emails with the board over the last couple of weeks. And so I wanted to speak to the community. I'm sorry that I didn't touch base with all of my colleagues on this, but normally the board does not respond to public comment during the meeting, but these aren't normal times, and I'm very worried that the public will not feel like we are hearing you. Our community of students, teachers, parents, and staff is grappling with a life-threatening situation unlike anything that has happened in our lifetimes. A slow-motion natural disaster where we still don't know whether the worst of the storm has passed or is still coming at us. We have heard from a tremendous number of stakeholders throughout the pandemic, but especially in the last month, as the district has tried to pivot back to some level of in-person learning. We've heard from teachers who volunteered to come back in person for the sake of their students and to allow their higher risk colleagues to stay virtual. We've heard from teachers who already feel stretched too thinly to handle even one more change. We've heard from families whose students are struggling desperately with distance learning. And we've heard from parents who consider any return to in-person learning to be irresponsible. The problem is that you're all right in one way or another. This is an absolutely dreadful situation that has pushed us all to the brink. Our administrative team are trying valiantly to guide us through it while constantly and simultaneously being accused of both moving too quickly and also of moving too slowly. Moreover, the facts on the ground keep changing in ways that make it extremely difficult to develop even medium-term plans. Planning for a return to in-person learning was underway well before the holiday surge in infections, and certainly long before the more infectious strain of the virus was even known. Many important parameters simply won't be known except in hindsight. So please keep letting us know your experiences and thoughts. Also, please bear with us as we try to find a path through the storm that minimizes harm to our more than 30,000 students. I have no doubt that our superintendent and his team are making many decisions with inadequate information, which is not their fault because they are not omniscient. I'm also confident that our administrators are making every decision they make with the best interests of our students at heart. Thank you, and please stay tuned for this meeting's superintendent's report on the pathway forward.
Okay, thank you, Director Carlson. The next item on the agenda is approval of the January 25 consent agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by Director Stewart and seconded by Director Bleasner that we approve the consent agenda. Dr. Holman, will you please poll the board?
Absolutely. Director Sage,
Yes.
Director Bleasner,
Yes.
Director Carlson,
Yes.
Vice President Stewart,
Yes.
and President La Liberty.
Yes. Dr. Holman, will you please summarize our donations for this meeting?
Yes.
Not for this meeting, but that are being reported at this meeting.
Yes. For the January 25th, 2021 board meeting, we have about $18,500 worth of donations. The majority of that from our PTSA, but also we do have some private source donations. And so we just want to, once again, thank our community, whether it's our PTSA or private sources, thank them for those donations that help us to continue to provide services for students, programs for students. Those donations go to support our teachers, our teaching staff, and just continue to provide an excellent education for kids.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. The first item on the non-consent agenda is our Facility Advisory Committee's final recommendations. I'm excited to hear these. Dr. Holman, will you please start us through this?
Absolutely. And as Associate Superintendent Barbara Posthumus is coming to our meeting here, I just want to make a few comments. First, I want to thank the committee. This committee has put in a tremendous amount of time, effort, and energy. They started their work back in November 2019, and during that time had to shift to a remote environment to complete their work. And so like all of us, had to adjust their practices, their work, their collaboration in a new space. I think they've done a tremendous job with what they were able to produce. Would also like to recognize Penny Mabey, who came back. She also facilitated the long-term facility task force, which brought the board recommendations, and if I'm remembering correctly, in 2014. And she facilitated this group and once again did a tremendous job. If you remember, as we started to implement the long-term facility task force recommendations, that first step was identifying a bond strategy to actually fund the projects, and it was a 4-phase bond strategy. And we knew after the first 2 bond measures that we would want to take a step back, do another analysis to make sure that our data was accurate, that our projections were right, confirm the projects that were still listed in the long-term facility task force out beyond 2018. And so as you remember, 2016 passed a bond measure. We just completed all of those projects, opening this year with, I'm sure I could remember all of them, but Juanita High School, I know the Old Redmond Schoolhouse, and others. And then in 2018, went out for a second bond measure as part of that program. That bond measure did not pass. We subsequently came back with a levy strategy to provide some short-term but permanent capacity at the high school level, elementary level, and then we did some additional portables at that time as well. And so really this Facility Advisory Committee is about reviewing reviewing the long-term facility task force work, confirming that, analyzing that, and bringing you new recommendations tonight. Tonight, you're going to receive the report, and then at the February 8th meeting, the board will take action to accept these recommendations. And as we know, this is just one part of the overall work that needs to be done when we think about the long-term efforts around facility planning. This is kind of the launch point, and then it's then digging into the details of program costs, strategy for funding these, some of which you'll see tonight, but then dollars and cents are associated with that at a later date. And so with that, I will welcome Barbara Posthumus to the microphone to provide you with the Facility Advisory Committee recommendations, and I will let her introduce both Penny and the committee members that are here to share with the board tonight. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Holman. And everybody should be seeing the PowerPoint. And tonight, as Dr. Holman mentioned, we are sharing our recommendations, the Facility Advisory Committee recommendations regarding future facility needs. We did share preliminary recommendations with the board at the July 13th, 2020 study session. And then in October, we shared these recommendations with the community through an online open house and solicited feedback on the projects and on funding mechanisms. So I'm pleased tonight to have 3 committee members with us to share the committee's final recommendations. And each of them will be presenting a different section of the PowerPoint, and they'll turn their mic and camera on at their section. So Ann Tran, Ann is with us tonight. She is the parent of 2 elementary school students, and Ann was also part of our strategic plan community engagement group. Diana La Fornara. Diana is the parent of a high school senior and middle schooler. She lives in the Lake Washington Learning Community area. She's a paralegal and an education advocate. She is a previous member of our long-term facility task force and is also a current member of the District Equity Committee. Mindy Lincecum is with us. Mindy is also a former member of the long-term facility task force. She's a past Lake Washington School District PTA president. She has 3 children that have gone through Lake Washington schools. And then Penny Maybe, as Dr. Holman mentioned, our facilitator is with us as well. She's with formerly with Enviro Issues and now with Definitely Maybe Consulting. So I will talk about tonight. We're going to review the committee's work and share the final recommendations. And then we'll give the board time at the end for questions and comments. So first, I just want to remind, and John talked a little bit about this, the Facility Advisory Committee purpose. Their goal was to make recommendations for future facility planning, aligning with our district strategic plan, and provide recommendations to accommodate our rapid enrollment growth and to continue to provide quality learning environments. We have been meeting since November of 2019 through our last meeting was earlier this month. We've had 10 meetings overall. And again, they reviewed the long-term facility task force recommendations. They looked at current demographic information, student growth projections. They considered the recommendations by the task force and the bond advisory committee. and they are presenting their recommendations on facility needs and financing options tonight. So we had 33 members on the committee representing parents, business, senior groups, our city government representatives, and district staff. And then we also had district staff that were part of the technical team from business and facilities and communications. And then Eric was our board member representative. So the next two slides kind of talk about the timeline, and I won't read everything on these slides, but I just want to show that we had multiple committee meetings, but also periodic board updates throughout the process and community engagement throughout the process. So we shared information with the board before the committee started working. We had 3 committee meetings, then we had a community engagement process through thought exchange. Then we had 4 more committee meetings. Then we provided the board an update in May, sharing their work to date. Then another board update in July, the community engagement process in the fall, and then our final committee meetings. So our committee, as Dr. Holman said, we both worked in person and virtually. So we've got pictures of that's our project when we were working on project recommendations at Alcott, and then some snaps of our virtual meetings over looking at our PowerPoints and meeting as a group. So I am going to then turn it over to Ann Tran. She is going to go over the findings and recommendations.
Hi, good evening. This is Ann, and I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes, as Barbara mentioned, reviewing some of our findings and recommendations. Our committee spent some time reviewing the 2014 Long-Term Facilities Task Forces, their work, and then also looking at some updates from the district. So some of our key findings were that the district continues, the district has successfully implemented the recommendations from the 2014 task force. The district continues to see significant enrollment growth that has resulted in our current some overcrowding in our schools, and we anticipate future overcrowding. We still have aging facilities that need to be addressed. And in particular, we see that there are spaces that don't meet educational specifications and the standards we have for our facilities, and that there's really limited available land to build new schools in our district. And then finally, because of COVID-19, we had to move our work to virtual meetings, but we also discussed that we are using the lessons learned during remote learning as potential innovation for future programming. Next, we're going to look at a couple of maps of the district and really look at what enrollment might look like versus current capacity. So this first slide shows elementary school. I should start that saying that this information is provided by Flow Analytics, which was an external firm that helped with some demographic information. And that was part of the recommendation made by the 2014 task force, was to supplement some of the enrollment information put together by the district itself. So first, 23 out of the 29 elementary schools will be at or over capacity in the next 10 years. 6 out of 8 of our middle schools will be at or over capacity in 10 years. And then 3 out of 4 high schools will be at or over capacity in 10 years. And overall, we see 3,700 students learning in 160 portables, which is part of our district's efforts to make sure that our space is available for our students. And it's a great strategy for short-term needs. Next, I will dive a little bit into some of the recommendations that our committee came up with after reviewing this data. and some of our building conditions. And our recommendations report that you'll be seeing later is organized into sections, such as when we plan and when we build. And some of the highlights are in this slide. First, we wanted to prioritize building additional classroom capacity, as well as addressing aging facilities. When we construct new buildings, we'd like to construct them for larger capacity, and also have equal size of schools across the district. Some schools are smaller and some schools are larger within divisions like elementary and middle school. We also want to maximize the use of land at existing school sites. Some of our recommendations were to rebuild some schools because they have available land that could also be used for future projects and programs. We also want to build with innovation in mind. We had some presentations from architects that suggest that urban school designs may need to be considered to maximize available land. And we also recommend using an equity lens when designing and building facilities. My colleague Diana will share more about this later on in the presentation. And then finally, we feel strongly that we need to educate and regularly inform community members about capacity and aging facility status and needs and the lack of available land. We just want to increase awareness about the district's ongoing efforts to address facilities and some of the constraints we face and how funding can be part of that solution. And then we want to remind you that after we prepared our preliminary recommendations in June, the Facilities Advisory Committee conducted an online open house and survey this past fall. And the open house provided the community information about our capacity challenges, our district's projections on future growth, and information on aging facilities, as well as the number of portables housing students. Information was shared on the work that the committee had done up to that point, and also our preliminary project recommendations. And we asked for feedback on those recommendations, as well as comments on how to prioritize projects and how to finance projects. In the end, we received more than 1,000 responses, and we reviewed over 600 individual comments. Thanks for your time, and I am going to turn the next section over to Diana.
Hello, my name is Diana LaFernara. Thank you so much for passing the virtual mic over to me. As on a personal note, it's really been a pleasure to be a part of this process. You know, back when I started in 2014, my son wasn't even in high school, and now he's a COVID senior, and it's definitely been an interesting ride. I'm going to start talking about the project recommendations, but before I do, I just wanted to ensure everyone, there's going to be some things you like in these recommendations, and there's going to be some things you probably don't like that much. And I just want to assure you that very, very wide viewpoints were represented on our committee, and it took a lot of discussion to get these recommendations into a document that we all were okay with putting our names on. So, you know, if you're very passionate about the facilities work, I highly recommend that you volunteer for future facilities committees. Okay, so let's talk about the community engagement that we got back from our survey and using that wonderful new process that we had. So over 76% of the community expressed support for the recommended projects, which is really great. And then others provided feedback, either emphasizing support for specific projects or sharing why some might be a lower priority. There were comments that were specifically expressing support for the aging schools, Kamiakin, Alcott, Smith, and Rockwell. Comments were received in support of choice schools, and then there were other comments regarding concerns about choice schools, including waiting lists and equity issues. A few comments came in regarding a 5th comprehensive school versus choice schools. Some comments expressed concerns about the proposed idea of moving the location of some current choice middle schools. While as a committee we didn't make major changes to the project recommendations from July, we did add some additional language in the recommendations regarding choice schools, and I'll discuss that later as we go through the project recommendation slides. Thank you. As far as the high school and middle school project recommendations are concerned, they're shown on this slide. Our recommendations were really informed by capacity needs, building condition assessments, and the number of portables currently in use. And detailed information on that can be found in the report. I really encourage you all to take a look at it. For the high school recommendations, we recommended a new choice high school in the Lake Washington learning area and the Redmond East Lake learning area. Choice schools were recommended over a 5th comprehensive high school due to the unavailability of land, either that we currently have or that we would be able to purchase, that would be large enough for another comprehensive high school. And for the middle schools, we recommend rebuilding or expanding Kamiakin due to its age and its building condition. And as a parent of a Kamiakin alumni, I can definitely agree with that. We recommend an addition at Kirkland Middle School and to rebuild or expand Evergreen, also due to their age and building condition. And then based on the community feedback that we received, we changed the text in the table from move the choice school programs to evaluate moving the choice school programs. And we recommend that we reboundary in all areas to alleviate capacity. For elementary schools and other project recommendations, we have this slide. At the elementary level, we recommend adding 1 new elementary school in the Lake Washington area, adding capacity on the vacant property at Redmond L/ORSH, rebuilding and expanding Rockwell, Alcott, and Smith due to their age and building conditions and the need for capacity in those areas. Additionally, we recommend that we reboundary in all areas to alleviate capacity. Other recommended projects are to refurbish the Juanita Fieldhouse and pool, and to continue to try to expand partnerships for the athletic field use. In all learning areas, the need for additional preschool space was discussed and recommended to alleviate capacity at current schools. And while we didn't put a specific project on the table, our committee acknowledged in its report that the district is growing, and as it grows and we provide additional school facilities, we'll have to also allow for additional space for support activities such as staff and teacher training and administration, HR, technology, payroll, facilities, etc. We learned that the district is currently leasing space in order to accommodate the needs for staff support space. Based on the survey feedback, we added recommendations to incorporate what we've learned since COVID about alternative learning models. And it's definitely been a learning experience for everyone, I think we can all say. We added information regarding school sizes. In other words, the fact that some schools may need to be built bigger than the current standard if warranted, and to try to seek consistency in size when rebuilding or adding on to schools. We also updated our recommendations regarding urban schools. And urban schools are a new concept for many of us. Sometimes these names are hard to understand, but what it essentially means, it is an option that the district can explore in the future when addressing the lack of land for comprehensive schools. Urban schools have many but not all of the features of a comprehensive school on a smaller footprint, and they might utilize other community resources to provide school program features that are traditionally located on a comprehensive school campus. Okay. There were a lot of comments about choice schools. I certainly was part of the many discussions we had at the committee about choice schools. Given the number of comments in the survey regarding choice schools, we added information regarding what choice schools really are, their purposes, and why the district has used them and has them. We did not have as much time as we would have liked to really dig into deep into the demographic data regarding choice schools. And we're not a choice school committee, although maybe sometimes it felt that way. But recommendations were added regarding exploring ways to increase the representation in choice schools of groups of students, such as low-income students, special education students, English language learning students, and students in underrepresented racial groups. We also recommend ensuring facilities are constructed with appropriate spaces that can accommodate a wider array of student needs, or that choice schools be located when possible on a comprehensive school campus. The committee also added a recommendation regarding equity in design, with the idea that we should ensure that future design and construction takes into account the ways to ensure equal access to facilities and programs. And now I am going to pass the virtual mic to Mindy.
Thanks, Diana. I get to continue our project on with, so how are we going to pay for all this? Or at least where are we going to go get the money to make these buildings and these projects possible? Our committee spent quite a few sessions back in the spring and again talking about the capacity and the potential for both using levies or bonds to go to our community and ask for support for this funding. And then in the fall, it was part of the community engagement survey as well. And there was a good amount of education available to our community as they took the survey. It was an educational piece as well as asking for their feedback then on which approach should be taken, given the total price tag of some of these projects, of looking at all these different projects. In the survey, there were actual prices associated with these different phases. They were rough estimates, but it was the idea of putting all of the projects in one bond or spreading it out over 2 bonds that might be 4 years apart, or 3 bonds that were 4 years apart. Obviously, the more you spread it out, the lower each cost is, but really the higher the overall price tag might be, because prices will go up the farther out in the future you put these projects. And so the majority of community's response did favor a 2-phase option, 2 bonds 4 years apart, to split the projects into 2 groups. It seemed to be and as the committee took that feedback into consideration, it did seem to be the best balance between getting things done quickly so that the space was available for when it was needed, but also keeping the bonds of a size that the community was likely to support and be able to vote for at the level that they needed to, because bonds at this point require a 60% majority to pass. So we did have feedback. There was a lot of feedback that did say go for it all at once, but it was outscored just slightly, as you see in this chart, by the idea of having 2 bonds spaced 4 years apart, but really being pretty aggressive about getting these projects accomplished in the next, before we need the space, with projections going out over 10 years. So that was our recommendation there. We also asked the community about how important were different aspects of prioritizing projects, or which projects should go first, which projects would be in later bonds. And there was large agreement. These were the things that were really important to the community, that projects that really that you got the most bang for your buck, the more that could both improve aging facilities and increase capacity were of highest importance. And then also to prioritize schools that had the space available, as Anne mentioned earlier, where maybe rebuilding would allow for additional projects on the same land. And there was also a high priority that we saw among the community, as the committee had expressed prior to getting the community feedback, that bonds really offer something to everyone, that we're doing projects across the district at the same time, so that different parts of the community all feel like their needs are being addressed as we're putting bonds forward. So taking those things into account, our recommendations moving forward are as a committee, were that the district pursue a 2-phase bond strategy for getting these projects done. That capital levies could be a fallback, kind of as the district has used them back in 2011 and in 2019 for when a bond didn't quite pass, but there were that is a backup method, but we're really hoping that we can educate our community and have them understand the importance and the need for these facilities, and therefore support bonds at a level that is necessary so that we can move forward with that. And taking those things into account, the committee did have a lot of discussion and recommendation that we do keep talking with our legislature about revising that 60% bond approval back down to a 50% for school bond measures because of the importance of facilities in promoting the education of our students. And so taking all those things into account, the priorities that the community expressed with aging facilities and increasing capacity, there were certain projects that kind of bubbled to the top and seemed to be a more urgent priority, and that the committee felt collectively were a higher priority and something that would be in phase 1 of these 2 bonds. And then the other projects that were on the earlier chart that Diana presented would go to phase 2. And so again, building that Choice High School in Redmond or the East Lake Learning Area, because we were seeing this shortfall of space in that area, came to the forefront. Kamiakin Middle School and Alcott and Smith especially have been on the list and have been on previous bond measures that weren't approved. And so they are definitely leading the list in kind of our most aged facilities and facilities that have the most need for additional capacity. And so they're in that first phase, stressing the need to rebuild the Juanita Fieldhouse and Pool. Also takes into account some of the significant aging mechanical systems in place there that if they're not replaced and updated sooner rather than later, there are going to be some more significant maintenance costs or even not being able to continue using them. So some of those things are what put the projects that are in phase 1, what moved them up to the head of the list with the committee and with the community. And then the rest of the projects were in phase 2. But we did want to stress as a community that just by putting these in just 2 bonds instead of spreading them out over 3, that really shows the urgency and importance of getting all of these things done in the quickest timeline possible. So those are the recommendations. And again, there's more detail and explanation in the full report. And I will hand this back to Barbara to take us on our next steps.
Great. Thank you, Anne and Diana and Mindy. I appreciate you presenting that information and taking time to do that. And I wanted to also have Penny turn on her camera and just introduce herself and share. We asked our committee members to kind of share what they enjoyed about the process. And Penny, I believe you are here. Can you turn on your camera and share a little bit about the process?
Hi, Barbara. Yes, and hi, everyone. I do have my camera on, and thank you for giving me the microphone. We heard some really good things from committee members, and probably, I think, something that we heard quite a bit was their favorite thing was hearing from the different perspectives from parents, community members, and district employees. Meeting so many passionate, intelligent community members across our district, appreciate the advocacy for equitable considerations in regards to facilities planning. The opportunity to serve our community, which I always love to hear that. And I think the favorite one that I heard was this person said to see a collaborative, community-minded effort come together during extremely challenging times, great team. And I think that really does say it all for the work that this advisory committee did.
And again, Penny, I want to thank you for being our facilitator. You did a fabulous job. And Penny retired in the middle, or kind of toward the tail end of this process. Penny officially retired, and she stayed on to finish this task, stayed working with us after her retirement. So we really appreciate that. However, she is doing a lot more fishing rather than facilitating. So So back to kind of next steps, we will be posting the recommendations on the district website. And then, as Dr. Holman mentioned, we will accept the recommendations at the next board meeting. So now I want to open it up to our board members for questions. And again, you can address your questions to me or Anne or Diana or Mindy or even Penny if you have specific questions. And if someone could help me about who's raising hands, because I'm not sure I can see hands.
I'll try to do that. Director Stewart, I see his hand raised.
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate the Facilities Advisory Committee for all their work and time, to be quite frank. It's an amazing, difficult, and amorphous job. I'd also like to make sure that I mentioned that I'm so glad that y'all kept equity at the forefront of all your decisions, because as we move towards more equitable facilities and a more equitable education in Lake Washington, we can't just do it for one project or another. It has to be all. And if we do it for just a couple, then all of our work is for naught. And I really appreciate y'all keeping equity in the forefront. As y'all looked at the priorities and the field house and pool ended up in priority 1, how does that balance with the lack of classroom space in comparison to budget size?
Mark, are you asking about prioritizing that over classroom space, or are you asking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Does any of the committee members want to answer that question, or I'm happy to? So, I mean, ultimately, we know that yes, the pool, refurbishing the pool and the field house is a small amount of money, and you could use those funds to put additions somewhere else. But the committee, knowing that the mechanical systems in the pool are close to at the end of their life cycle, it was important for the committee to prioritize that project. And I see Mindy turned her camera on. Do you want to add anything to that, Mindy?
I was just going to add to that. I think learning takes place in a lot of ways. And as one of the teachers mentioned earlier in this board meeting, part of learning comes from community building, and the community sports and clubs and activities that our students do together are as important to sustaining and supporting their learning. And the committee had a lot of discussion about that. A lot of the discussion that came from our around choice schools was about the experiences that support and supplement the classroom learning in those environments. And I think things like the field house and the pool or other facilities are also things that supplement and surround classroom learning and are part of the important part of learning that happens here.
I'd like to just add one more piece to that. Mark, I actually asked a similar question about that as well, and I've been thinking about, why would we prioritize, the pool and in those spaces. I also think, our obligation to ensure that we're maintaining our community assets and over time is a really, really important part of our fiscal responsibility. And so, letting something get to a point of complete failure versus maintaining it along the way, I think there's benefit in that. And then when I also think about our rebuild and enlarge Juanita High School, that didn't come with a gymnasium. And so I think there's some an additional piece there where, typically when we're rebuilding an entire school, it's gymnasium, it's all of those pieces included. And so I think that's another aspect of, why would we prioritize that? And that field house truly is a community asset in the Juanita area, but I know it's used by, students, families, and community groups across the region.
Now, I understand the field house. My concern is the aging facilities, the pool, and please don't think that I don't appreciate the what a pool brings, or water exercise brings to individuals. Both my boys benefited from it. My one son is a lifeguard and swimming instructor, but at the same time, I know that the Kirkland community turned down the opportunity to build their own pool, so it's a little bit of a disconnect for me. I'm sorry. Maybe somebody could explain it to me better. Not tonight necessarily.
Next, we have Director Blesner and then Director Carlson.
All right. Yeah, so first off, thanks again to the Long-Term Facilities Task Force. I'm not sure what your name is anymore at this point. I keep forgetting. But thank you for your time. That's a significant investment. Greatly appreciate it. It's clear there's been a lot of work that's gone into it and thought. And I just have a few things for clarification. Just one of the pieces mentioned that you said was to learn from what we've done through COVID and the digital learning. And so I'm not seeing where that's playing out anywhere in these recommendations of how we might access school without walls as another way in which to be working around capacity. So I'm wondering if there was any talk of how that fits into this overall plan, or if that's something to come forward. And I can leave that to be answered, or I can go on to my next. I have like 3 questions.
I can answer it real quick for you, Siri.
Okay.
The issue is that we are a facilities committee and not a programmatic committee, and so we didn't feel that we were really had the directive to address how that would be done. But we all had lots of ideas about possibility.
Was it popular? Was it an idea of, yes, that's a good thing to do?
I think that, the feeling was some students would really like it and others would not, in much the same sense with choice schools, right? So you have to see what the reception would be in what segments of our student population for that.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Page 9 and 10 in the full report talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, and I apologize. I have not had a chance to read the full report at this point, so I might be asking things. You just direct me to the page. I'll look there as well. The other question I had, been talking for a while about urban school designs. I know the initial report that came out was we need to do more diving into this. As I look at the table of projects, is there thought in there of how an urban school would also be built into any of those projects? If land is the issue and different things, I'm just wondering if the committee thought about, a choice urban school setting is probably the way that we really should be thinking about that and going for. And do we have good examples? You mentioned that you saw some. I'm just thinking visualizing urban schools is a concept for, and if we have examples. So I'm tossing that one out.
I can help with.
We had a couple of examples that were given to us. One's a school in Seattle. One was down in Tacoma. I think there was one from Chicago or New York. So I know Barbara can probably get you the actual links and websites to see how those kind of schools function. And yeah, there was a lot of discussion within a choice school. The advantage of a choice school from a facilities perspective is that it allows people to choose a program that doesn't have everything that is required in the educational specifications of a comprehensive school, but the people, the families, the students who are choosing that program are willing to give up the things that aren't there for the things that are. And so, yes, a lot of our conversation around those choice schools that might be added would look more like, or could possibly look more like an urban school because they would have a more compact footprint than a 5th comprehensive high school.
Which brings me to my other question, which was around the 5th comprehensive. As I looked at the map as that was put out, and I know you all have talked about this, so I know you have points, so I appreciate your engaging me. Is it was pretty clear that there were 2 Lake Washington High School and Redmond High School were the ones with significant number that was growing over time. What was the decision that the choice high school was a better option? Let's say land existed. Okay, let's say we had land to build comprehensive high school. Maybe not 40 acres, but you could do it. Was that something the group said, no, that really shouldn't be the way to go. It should be choice anyway. So I'm just asking, is land really the limiting, or are there other reasons?
It was the land. It was the land. I think that, I know I personally floated, although it wasn't adopted, ideas about combining several choice schools onto one campus in order to be able to have a lot more staff to support more kinds of students based on the prototypical school model. I think that we just didn't have enough research on that, and we were on a more abbreviated schedule than the original facilities planning task force back in 2014. So I think that is more why we didn't delve into that area more. And I think choice schools were the option because it's a known quantity in the district.
Right, and I appreciate the group commenting. The issue with equity within our choice schools has been in existence a long time. So I'm hopeful when I read the report that it gives suggestions of how to address that, because we've talked about it at least since I've been on the board. It's, you know, for 10 years now.
So that's me question. I have a whole document that I personally wrote. I'd be happy to share with you that has detailed suggestions, but it was considered outside the purview of this committee, so there are some more general suggestions.
I would love to see your recommendations at some time, Diane. I realize that's outside the purview, but appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I'll just add, this is Anne, one comment on urban schools, that we don't limit ourselves to thinking about them for high schools. We saw urban school designs for elementary as well, so that's a possibility.
Yeah, that is one thing. I think that's the way we have to be thinking, because land is what it really, I mean, that is our limitation, and that's okay. Vertical is our options. There are amazing options. East Coast does lots of different things. You saw them down in the South. So yeah, no, I agree. I think there's lots of cool things you can do in these environments. And then lastly, my question is around the funding issue is, and this is something that you landed on bonds as the recommendation of 2 bonds, and you mentioned levies in case of failure. The challenge with that, I always think, is when you fail a bond, there is a hit that comes really strongly with that. And so was there discussion of capacity? Could we actually do this through a capital levy approach based on our current status that we have, or were you not able to dig that far in?
Siri, I can answer a little bit of that. We did share some scenarios with the committee about potentially doing capital projects fully through levies and not with bonds. And the challenges with that is with levies, you're getting money slowly over a longer period of time. And so when you're needing to build as fast as we're needing to build, getting your money through levies becomes challenging. It's really that's why the recommendation for bond. If you get to a point such as Seattle School District, they do all their capital construction through levies, but they aren't growing very fast. So I think that's we can continue to look at some of those options. But that's the kind of the challenges with using full levies as a strategy.
Okay, no, thank you. So appreciate all those sorts of things sort of playing out. There's clear sorts of pieces of where to go. I would like to see at some point how the digital can impact this and that component of some of the online piece and some of the other innovative pieces. It might not be in this report, but that would be further down the line probably. Because I do think that's another component to learn. Also, did the committee come, as you talk, what were our lessons learned through this process of COVID-19? Did you all have any discussion on that? Nope. Okay.
I think it was very high level, and Diana sounds like she's raising her hand, but it was really continue to look at alternative options, such as, again, as the district is opening a virtual academy, that may, in the long term, impact facility needs, or hybrid learning was topics we talked about. But again, the committee didn't have time to take a deep dive into that. Diana, do you want to add something?
I was just going to mention the hybrid idea that was discussed. So.
Yeah, and we did have a statement. One of our committee members sent and was tasked with writing a sentence about that, and it got sent to a no longer used email. And so there's one little sentence that we want to get back into the report that we'll do before February. So, but that exactly speaks to what you're asking, Siri.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next, I lost track. I think it's Director Carlson and then Director Stage.
You got it. So first I wanted to say thank you to our committee members and to everyone who isn't currently here on the committee, because it's such a relief to have you remind us that the business of the district goes on, even if it is still stressful, but it's not COVID. So thank you. Now, I actually was interested in drilling a little bit more into the urban school design. My understanding on that, as discussed here, was that that's simply about the footprint of the school, as in not the standard 40 acres per high school. If I can't remember if that's the actual number, but rather about where you can find space, and it's not so much about program as finding a way to build a school for a certain number of students that's not in our traditional specs. Is that accurate as an interpretation?
I mean, yeah, we looked at, and we can certainly share the same information with the board. The committee had a PowerPoint presentation, and it is on our website. I think it's in our April meeting, one of our April meetings, and the different scenarios. And, it's schools that are built up, not out, right? These are 5-story or more schools, and very limited. The gyms may be on the top floor, or, and very limited space for parking, very limited space for outdoor. They don't have fields and playgrounds, and, I'm thinking of an elementary. And so just different designs for how you accommodate outdoor play and activities. So again, we can share that with the board.
That would be great.
And
Okay.
Chris, can I just add one more piece to, it's what Barbara described, but oftentimes there are also partnerships that need to be established in order to accomplish everything you need to for the school. And so whether that's public-private partnerships or public-public partnerships, I mean, there's oftentimes unique relationships that are forged to also then accomplish your goals with having a school in that location. So it's probably a different size of school, it's probably a different build of a school, and it's also through those partnerships as well that you can accomplish things.
Okay. And so my last question is actually still on this subject. So when we say urban school, does that mean we're limiting it to thinking about our 3 downtowns, or is that this is a structural design that might be implemented at any place in the district?
I mean, I think it's a structural design that, depending on the, requirements of our city and what they allow, because there are certain neighborhoods where you might be able to build, as we've built our Meade Elementary, for example, we were able to build that 3 stories. But there are height restrictions in certain neighborhoods. And so it would be also continuing to work with our cities in where you can be allowed to go higher than 3 stories.
Yeah. I was just asking that simply because I know we've got space challenges in terms of buildable locations, but it seems to me that it might be even more challenging to procure space in one of our urban centers than in the rest of the district. So it might present its own unique challenges.
Right.
Just as a point on that, Chris, like Tesla STEM was a unique build for us, given how we procured the actual facility and put it together. And so I think, exactly to Barbara's point, it's more of a mindset and a way of thinking about design, given some of the unique spaces, whether it's truly in one of our urban centers or outside of those.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Oops, sorry. Director Stage, and then I think Director Stewart's hand went back up.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank the Facilities Task Force, because this is a long, dedicated work group that has come up with some very innovative ideas. And to that end, Diana, can I be copied on your email to Siri, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I've actually had the opportunity to speak with many council members in our jurisdictions, and this is a common theme that they want to help us look at, well, what does an urban school look like, and how can we help you to find what you need according to your ed specifications to make something like this happen. Specifically, City of Kirkland has asked if we could meet more regularly and try and exchange some of these ideas and information. The COVID-19 has changed everybody's world. Cities have been under just as much workload, I would say, as we have been, but there's interest in trying to resume those meetings about urban schools, but also about things like transit and the bus rapid transit station on 85th Street that's coming in, and how can plans be made that assist in traffic flow for families and schools, and not just wanting to make sure that they don't miss any information that would be important in that planning of that station. And then the other thing I wanted to ask about was, I remember when I first came on the board, so this is my 4th year, and we were talking about choice programs with equity, and trying to think about how do we have programs based at schools rather than based themselves in a separate building and campus and location. So I would love to have more information on how some of those things might happen to bring access to more students.
And that was part of their recommendations about where, when possible, try to locate, choice programs on comprehensive campuses to for access.
Mm-hmm. It just wasn't very clear that, really, if we're going to have an equitable access to choice programs, we need to make them widely available throughout our district, not necessarily just at the campus that happens to have a space for it at the moment. Thank you.
And we are in the process of setting up our regular meeting with City of Kirkland. So that is in the works.
Fantastic. I know City of Redmond has also expressed interest, and I'm meeting with Mayor Bernie next week. So it would be great if we could reach out and try and connect similarly.
And we have a regular quarterly meeting, council members or board members, but just facility staff and Parks and Rec and their planning staff have a regular meeting, quarterly meeting with the city. So we also meet with them on a regular basis.
Thanks.
Director Stewart, I see your hands raised again.
Yes, thank you. In your discussions with the demographer that we work with, was there did they lay out a direction, if you will, that our bulge is going? Are we, is the district growing more to the southeast, to the northeast, northwest, whatever? So we could, because the issue of not being able to build on the non-urban growth areas, it really only applies if we're actually bulging that way, because it doesn't make sense to build out and push for and fight for a facility out in this section if the demography is going the other way. Did you have any discussions with which way that really our bulge, for lack of a better term, is going?
Yeah, and we can, again, the committee, the presentations by our demographers were in the last February timeframe, and then we are working with them again to update projections, and we can get maps for you on kind of visuals about where the growth is occurring. It's primarily occurring in, again, within the urban growth boundary. It's in Kirkland, it's in Redmond, it's in downtown Sammamish. So that is where the majority of growth is occurring in the district. And then, so the projects that the committee's recommended is to address that growth. But we can get you more visual information on that.
That'll be helpful, because if we're going to have to fight for these areas where we're not allowed to build, I don't want to fight for something that we really don't need.
Okay, any other board member questions? Excellent. Thanks everyone for presenting tonight. It's pretty neat to have this presentation tonight. It's great to have some people working so hard to put together a facilities plan that will provide the space we know that our students need to have the best education. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see here. I lost the plot. The next item on our agenda is the superintendent report. Dr. Holman,
Great.
would you like to provide an update on the pathway forward?
I would like to provide a superintendent's report. And, it's probably not a surprise. I'm probably going to revisit some items that we've talked about since really, July, August timeframe, but just want to do a reset on, what is the guidance we're using to process decisions? What are some of the considerations we're making? What does current data look like in our county? I have a blog post from Dr. Duchin that he released last week. So just kind of an update on some information, because as Chris talked about earlier, right after public comment, the amount of comments and questions we're receiving are significant. People wondering, how or why are you making these decisions? And so I think it's important to always continue to go back to, what is that guidance and what is the information that we're using to make these types of decisions that really are not squarely in the wheelhouse of educators. And so, we rely on the experts in the fields to help give us guidance around the pandemic, the virus, and really implementation around in-person, which started in September, and then as we think about including more students in in-person learning based on guidance. And so just want to start with a brief update, and I actually tried to access the data related to our cities, but for whatever reason, that portion of the site just wasn't working when I was trying to pull it just a little bit earlier. And so I don't have that tonight. I know typically our regional data here, Kirkland, Redmond, Union Hill, and Sammamish, has been substantially lower than the overall county data. And so that's just important to note. I looked at the overall trend of the spread of the virus in King County over the last period of time. It peaked at 442 cases per 100,000 over the last 14 days, and that was on December 13th. And that we had seen just this ongoing incline of cases over that period of time, but it spiked on December 13th. It then went down, it dropped down to 288 cases per 100,000 on January 2nd, went back up to 350 cases on January 11th, and then today when I checked, in today's update in the dashboard is for Friday when they do this look back, and it's currently at 262 cases per 100,000 over the last 14 days. And so as you can see, there was a peak in kind of the middle of December. There has been a decline. We've seen some ups and downs with the virus. We also know that anytime we have holidays mixed into the data, that can skew the data. And so we always want to pay attention to that and continue to analyze these data. But it's something we continue to pay attention to because we take our responsibility for our role in the community very seriously. Last week, Dr. Duchin, our health officer for Seattle and King County, he released a statement, and it really was in relation to the provision of in-person learning. There had been a lot of conversations. His office had received significant communication from the community, and so he wrote a blog post. And if anyone is interested in reading these blog posts, not just about in-person learning, but I know they just recently updated the blog with information around the new variant, more substantial information than is in this blog post that I have in front of me, but it's just really good information around coronavirus, COVID-19, and some of the different topics around that. But one of his opening statements in this post is that feelings of fear and uncertainty in response to planning for expanded in-person instruction during the pandemic are very real for many people and understandable given the unfamiliar and evolving nature of the COVID-19 outbreak. I think that's just a very succinct way of articulating that the emotions that are associated with this work are real. We recognize that, and our commitment is to continue to work to ensure that our schools, our classrooms, are in alignment with the guidance that we're receiving, because that is truly the guidance that will allow us to have safe and healthy classrooms, mitigating risk to the greatest extent possible. He goes on to say later on, and this is in relation to the vaccine, because one of the questions we're getting is, well, why don't you wait for the vaccine before you return to in-person learning? And that's a question that I've asked King County Public Health many times. I ask them on a weekly basis at this time if their guidance and advice changes in regard to this. But Dr. Duchin says, at this time, Washington State guidance for in-person learning has not changed in response to recent licensure of COVID-19 vaccines for persons aged 16 to 64, or in response to the recent emergence of a more transmissible variant of COVID-19. And it's just, again, him stating that the vaccine and the new variant don't change the guidance. And ultimately, what he's saying is that the mitigating measures and strategies that are recommended for our schoolhouses and our classrooms are what will keep students and staff healthy and safe, while providing a unique and new type of in-person learning. I think our kindergarten teacher that joined us tonight articulated some of those differences. I believe our parents have had to evaluate that as they think about the provision of in-person versus remote learning experience, and so I appreciate that greatly. Dr. Duchin also speaks about the variant, and just that there is some additional considerations around that, but ultimately that it's through a strict adherence to the measures that are recommended that will allow for preventing and reduction of transmission of the virus. And so it's a very good blog post. I would recommend reading that, because I think it does truly help provide additional guidance and framework for thinking about the provision of in-person learning services. I also want to share with the board, remind us back to the guidance that Governor Inslee released on December 16, which updated what was formerly called the decision tree. And what you can't see on my screen right now is it loading, so I'll go ahead and attempt to share this while it loads, because I just want to remind us all of well, that's unfortunate that it won't share. Okay. It says I need to sign in. So I will just speak to this because I believe all of you are familiar with the decision tree and that information. And so I'm going to pull it up on my screen even though you can't see it. And one of the things that's important to remember is that this guidance was updated. And Washington State had a very conservative set of guidance that they provided to school districts back in August. And if you remember, it walked very slowly the consideration around in-person learning services. And with this update, and I've heard a number of people say there's not much reference, there's not a lot of references, information about where they got this information. And I would offer that there's a number of research studies offered in this information that if people are interested in truly understanding how the Department of Health came to this conclusion, that there is a number of references to research articles and whatnot. They also talk about the analysis that they did do in consideration of this, and so I think that's also a helpful piece. It isn't just about jumping into what's the one number that's going to tell us kids can come back, but actually understanding holistically how the Department of Health considered and thought about this update, I think is also an important part of understanding the guidance. And so there's a couple of additional pieces that they added to their guidance. One was really focused on labor and industry employer safety requirements, and they ask school districts to walk through a set of criteria to ensure that they are prepared and in alignment with that labor and industry safety requirements before they consider the provision of in-person learning services. And once you've met those requirements, which as a district, as I read through these, it's things like considerations for students or staff that are at higher risk, facilitate drop-off and pickup of students, grouping students into cohorts, which is required in elementary and recommended in middle and high school. Those are the types of things that we have planned on and worked on really since the beginning of the school year and is in alignment with our COVID-19 safety plan. And then if you're able to do these pieces, then it asks that, that schools and sites have a plan to respond to positive cases on their campuses. And so do you have a positive case response plan? I know I shared with the board last week some information about our positive case response plan and some of those details. And so we have those in place. We have communication vehicles in place to be able to inform families and individuals and be able to make decisions around these things. And so then once those criteria are met, then it's really about evaluating the current spread of the virus in relation to the guidance that the Washington Department of Health has provided. And as you know, they have a high, moderate, and a low risk category that they reference, with the high risk category being over 350 cases per 100,000, moderate being between 50 and 350 cases per 100,000, and low being below 50. As you know, right now, we're right around that, what did I say, 262 range, which puts us in the moderate range. But we've really bounced around as of late, and so we've kind of been in the high, and then we've been in the moderate. But for today, we're in the moderate. But it's not just about case rates. It's also about understanding some other data. It's about positivity rates being between 5 and 10%. It's also about understanding the trends in cases and hospitalizations. And one of the pieces that maybe I didn't highlight enough when I initially talked about this with staff and community was at the bottom of that grid, it talks about transition. And that transition piece is really about the trends in cases and hospitalizations. And so I just want to read a piece here. It says, when trends in cases and hospitalization are flat or decreasing, and the school can demonstrate the ability to limit transmission in the school environment, expand access to in-person learning. And so this is another layer for us to evaluate as we're making these considerations. And so it's just important to note that we don't make decisions in isolation. We make decisions based on expert opinion and guidance. We know that our public health agencies are those tasked with leading and guiding our state around public health, issues of public health. And so we continue to partner with them. I engage with our King County public health officials on a weekly basis. And so we continue to do that work with them to understand their guidance as we are planning for the provision of in-person learning services, which we did push out for an additional 2 weeks for our kindergarten and first grade. Again, that decision wasn't made lightly because we know anytime we make a decision such as that, it has impact. It impacts our families, it impacts our students, it impacts our teachers, the planning around that. And so the weight of that decision was significant. I made that decision in the best interest of the organization to ensure that when kids arrive on campus, they are met with a classroom that is prepared, ready to implement all of the mitigating measures and strategies that are required of us, that their teachers feel that they have had the right time to prepare and plan. As you may know, our kindergarten and first grade teachers are currently in their planning week in preparation for the in-person learning and transition to new remote, and that means teachers potentially shifting from remote to in-person. It means teachers staying in remote but possibly having new students join them in class. It's some of our safety net teachers transitioning from their safety net program to either kindergarten or first grade. And it's the 25 to 28 new hires that we just made in the last week and a half, doing their planning and preparation to open classrooms. And so all of this comes with significant impact. I think what was the hardest part of that decision was the fact that I know students had on their calendars a day circled of when school would either be changing because they receive a new remote teacher or going to school for in-person learning. And disappointing our students in making those types of changes are significant, and we didn't make that decision lightly. And so that's just some information and thinking around the guidance we're receiving, some of our thinking around the decisions as we make them, and our continued work. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Director Stewart?
Oh, John, I appreciate all the hoops y'all have had to jump through and the difficulties of the feeling like a Dr. Doolittle push me, pull you. But I'd really be interested in hearing in the near future more detail about the social emotional programming that we're going to be that we are doing and going to increase or enhance in this uncertain time, because to be quite frank, heaven only knows what's going to happen tomorrow, next day, whatever. And I think the more we can put more time and information into that for families, the better off they'll be, regardless of whether we're in class, out of class, wherever, or out of in home or out of home, whatever. Right. My point is, I think we as board members, and I think the community too, would really benefit from knowing all the things that are going on in that area, because that is a major situation, I know, and a major concern of a lot of parents. But at the same time, as we saw in an article that was recently written, the emotional aspect of going back into a school that doesn't look like a school or doesn't look like what you used to is just as bad.
Yeah. Great. I will. I'll work with the team and figure out whether that's a written report or if we bring that to a formal board meeting. There's significant work being done in that area right now, and so there's lots to share.
That's why That's why I really would kind of like to see it go to a board meeting, just because I want the community at large to really see it too.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Director Sage?
Yes, to build on Mark's request, is there a way that we can get some demographic breakouts of, say, how many students are How many students are accessing the supports that we have put into place for mental well-being and the access to the counselors and our social workers? And do we know, is there a higher proportionate of white students accessing these services? How many students are we seeing that are low socioeconomic? Can we get some of that type of breakout? Is it even there? Is that data available?
So it's, again, something I'll have to ask the team. I tend to think it's not, but just for privacy reasons and things like that, around some really confidential type things. But let me ask that. I'm just building that into thinking about that type of program presentation.
The other thing I'm wondering is if you can bring us some data on who is requesting in-person learning by demographic. Do we see more low socioeconomic families requesting in-person? Do we see, any other demographic, special education, for instance, that's more often requesting in-person? Trying to get a feel for who is the most impacted in this situation when they can't be in person. If you could add that to whatever report you come up with.
Yeah, we have that data, and I'll just see if we can provide that to the board on Thursday.
Okay. Anecdotally, it seems like we have more students of color, their families asking for in-person, but I want to make sure that I understand it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
I'll just briefly echo. I was going to ask for the same request as Director Sage, and that's to understand more what are the impacts on equity with both what we're doing now and what we're hoping to do soon. Who's accessing it now? How is that impacting our students? By going to in person, what does that look like? Okay, great. Thank you. Director Bleasner and Director Stewart, I see your hand.
It appears we're all on a very similar wavelength. So with the piece there, I'd also like to be able to, if you can do it by geography, actually by school, for the sense of who's coming back. But the other piece, you spoke a lot about the health context. I'd be interested, knowing that we still have 3 to 4 months of the school year left, as well as when we look at middle school and high school as to when a potential for in-person learning is still to be determined in this process, is where are our students currently at? So how is attendance occurring, all broken out by demographics? How is their engagement looking? What are graduation currently looking at? What are the classes in the sense of has anybody failed a class in our high schools? Because to start to understand those pieces, and then what are the plans for the next 4 months with the reality of how you start to address those things. I know we get the general data right now, but it's unclear as to, that tells me what, but it doesn't tell me what impact we're having to move that needle so that it's different. So if students are disengaging, what are we doing and how is that moving? For our students who have failed the class, what support have we provided them in which to do so? How, so just trying to understand the experience of our students currently and what might need to change going forward. As I see that as another component as you make these decisions. That's the mental health piece. That's there are all those pieces that we have at play. And it's not an easy one because there are, I think Director Carlson said it well, in that there were all sides and all issues that are there, and it's not clear. And so just trying to understand where are our kids at this in serving our mission.
Director Stewart, you had your hand first, but I'm going to call on Director Carlson first, so he can have a chance to.
That's fine.
Okay, thanks.
So thanks, John. I Thank you. This is extremely difficult, and I appreciate that you can't. It's like trying to teach my teenager to drive on the freeway. You can't jerk the wheel very often, otherwise you're going to crash. So I appreciate that you have taken a pause on the K1. I appreciate that you put a new date on that. I would caution you to pull the emergency brake unless we actually know we're going to crash on that. But the message that we got from public health today that was in our board inbox, even though we've got so many things, and I appreciate all of the concerns that have been raised by so very many teachers about their personal safety or the safety of their loved ones at home. And that is something, and also some teachers where they're like, yeah, I'm not at high risk. I don't live with anyone who's at high risk. Please put me up. That's something that the CDC recommendations, I wish that this was something that every parent and every teacher in our district could see, is that the CDC recommendation has been that K-12 schools be the last settings to close after all other mitigation measures have been employed, and the first to reopen when they can do so safely. Now, safely is a key word, but it also means that it's going to be a little bit scary because we're going to be the first ones out of the gate. We're not, if we're doing it right, we're not opening the bars. If we're doing it right, we're not opening everything. It's going to be a little bit scary. I also appreciate your effort to look up the numbers for our zone of the district of the county. The county is currently at about 260 per 100K, with the threshold for any activity being 350. The revised version was released in December. I calculated those numbers this afternoon, and for Sammamish, Kirkland, and Redmond, the average is about 120. We're about half the rate of the county as a whole. Even if we hadn't changed those numbers, we'd be getting to the point where it would be getting close to what we were allowed to reopen at back in September. So I know that there is a great amount of anxiety. I'm glad that you are working with the teachers about that anxiety, with the parents who are also anxious. It really is something where safely, there's a difference between zero risk and very low risk. And at very low risk of COVID, that's when we get to the point where you can balance it against the damage being done to children's educations. So thank you to all the teachers who have expressed their thoughts one way or another. And thank you to the teachers who said they want to be the ones at the front lines. If we can work with them on that, I think that it really is still responsible, barring some major V swoosh on the charts, for us to reopen the elementary schools safely starting when you got it currently scheduled. So thank you again for trying to drive in a situation where we just don't know what's going to come around the next bend.
Thank you.
Director Stewart?
John, have we received any update from Dr. Duchin or anyone else to give us a feel for the distribution of vaccines for the teachers? I mean, and the staff. I mean, I'm concerned not just for the teachers, but the janitors, the aides and the paras, and the bus drivers for that matter. My concern is that we've got a lot of folks who are in perhaps even the lower income area. When you look at the paras and the IAs and the bus drivers, I want to know that we are being able to proceed as safely as possible. And I think that's not just as safely from the physical standpoint, but in the emotional standpoint.
Yeah, and I think we will add probably an update around our, efforts around the vaccine to our next meeting as well, just to provide that update. I think I've updated the board just to talk in general about the partnerships we're working on to establish with local health agencies. A number of different pieces are at play. Now, I think your question really was more around have we received additional information around distribution of the vaccine? And as of today, I didn't receive anything more than a very typical status quo, really, with the vaccine. Not an influx, but people are still able to get some scheduling done with their local health providers. So no, not a great amount of information that I received today, anything different than what I had at the end of last week.
Okay, the reason why, again, I know that Can't tell if you're speaking.
I'm not. You're good.
I lost your audio there for a second. There's a lag, I guess. I know that the closest we can get a vaccination is 300 miles away. So for my wife, so I hate to think of having to have a road trip for everybody in the school district down to Vancouver. If it's possible at this point, though, could you give a kind of a very brief sketch of the partnerships we are working with to try and ensure the health of all the staff?
Yeah, and I'll just give maybe the tangible examples of the partnerships that we've executed with already. So when we found out that our nurses were part of the phase that was available, we reached out to both Evergreen Health and Kaiser to find out, process to get our nurses vaccinated, and they gave us the process and, do this. We were able to message our nurses, and they had ready access to the vaccine within, a day. When we found out that our health room professionals, the folks that actually, work in our health rooms, were also part of that phase, we again reached out to Evergreen Healthcare, reached out to Kaiser, got that information out to our health room professionals, and I think it was noted that one of our folks was able to then drive immediately to the clinic, receive her vaccine, first dose of the vaccine within a very short time period. And so, those relationships that we've established over time do truly pay off in these types of times, because they are relationships that, we're working on other things, over time. Right now, this is the critical issue for us to partner with them on, and so we'll continue to do that. When we got notice that any staff member 65 and over can receive their vaccination, same process, connecting with those agencies, getting that information to those staff. We're also working with a local healthcare agency to think about drive-through sites for staff once all of our staff, and that's not just teachers. When we say all of our staff, it's preschool through high school, all of our staff members, so that we can truly provide that in a rapid manner to our staff.
Thank you.
Any other board member questions? No. All right.
I think Matt might want to speak. At least he came on.
Matt Gillingham?
Yeah.
No, I can follow up. I just wasn't sure if Dr. Holman needed any additional details for that last item, but I think we can provide more of a follow-up later to the board.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thanks.
He was coming to rescue me. That's what it was.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Holman, for the report. I'm pleased that we are following the guidance from our public health officials and providing a safe in-person option for our students and working towards that. Okay, the next item on our agenda is Public and Community Affairs. Director Sage, can you give us a report, please?
I will.
And I have that video you mentioned queued up, so let me know.
I was just going to ask if you could cue that up.
Yeah.
First, I would like to just mention a couple of bills that have been moving through our legislature. There's a Senate Bill 5037 that is relating to establishing transparent school opening metrics tied to COVID-19 prevalence. And it's discussing if you're at certain low thresholds, that some in-person learning would be required. And another bill from the House that, let me scroll up a little bit here. Another bill from the House, I guess I didn't capture the number, that discusses pathways to graduation and can seniors, kind of similar to what they did last year, show their competency or some way that they have mastered a skill that perhaps they don't have the credit for to graduate. And I believe it's 20 credits minimum to graduate is a suggestion instead of the 24 that are currently required by the state. And it probably depends on which class. Do they care if you finished your pottery class? Maybe not. Do they care if you finished math? Absolutely. So just wanted everyone to be aware of those. And then I wanted to briefly discuss and show a 1-minute video on a project that the district has put some staff time into. Thank you very much. With a communication specialist from the district attending meetings with a group that the district has been involved with for quite some time. I think Matt and Siri are both on the board of Eastside Pathways. Is that correct? She's saying nothing. She's nodding. Okay, yes. My group, Matt's saying yes. My group at Eastside Pathways is specifically, it's a collaborative action network, and my group is working on increased communication for English learners, specifically Spanish-speaking families. And in conjunction with some Bellevue School District employees and Bellevue support partners such as their Bellcrest Church, Bellevue Kids Museum, and some Lake Washington partners, HopeLink, which is actually regional, and others have put together time and energy to make a really culturally relevant news distribution for Spanish-speaking families. So President LaLiberty, if you would not mind showing us 1 minute of that work. It's this clip is going to discuss childcare, how to find the childcare options on our website, and then walk you through to what the cost is and how to look at sliding scale, etc. I don't know if there's audio.
Nah. Boy, yeah. I even, was looking at that and then just didn't click it. All right.
I'm glad I asked you to do it. I'm not doing it.
All right, try this again. Somebody yell if the audio is not playing.
Anteriormente establecidas. También quiero invitarlos a ver este tutorial que les estamos mostrando en este momento para que pueda enterarse del cuidado de niños. Por favor, entre en la página lwsd.org, dé clic en el globo de la esquina superior izquierda, busque español y una vez tenga seleccionado el idioma, dé clic en Done. Al regresar a la página principal, ahora en español, podrá navegar esta página hasta encontrar Cuidado de Niños. Aquí verá las diferentes alternativas a través de YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, y encontrará también la forma para aplicar por el cuidado que ofrece el distrito. Y al dar clic en tasa de información podrá tener la lista con los precios por semana y por día. Les mostramos en este ejemplo los precios que maneja el distrito, pero usted puede revisar la oferta de las otras agencias que ofrecen cuidado y puede hacer además preguntas enviando un correo a applyextendedday@nwsd.org. Va a encontrar este correo electrónico también en la descripción de este video. Finalmente, como les decíamos, si usted...
I just wanted everybody, I'm sorry, visually it was a little bit blurry, so it probably needed to be bigger, but you sort of get the idea. Liliana is a pillar in the Spanish-speaking community in Lake Washington. Her counterpart in Bellevue School District comes on next to discuss how you access childcare there. And it's so much more relevant when somebody in the community who is respected is explaining the information. And the feedback we've gotten from focus groups is that parents don't necessarily read an email. So she's showing it the phone view, how you would get here on your phone, because that is most likely how that parent is going to access that information. So again, thank you to Dr. Holman and Matt and Shannon for giving us communication specialist time to make sure that it's accurate information delivered timely.
Great. Thank you, Director Sage. That was really excellent. That's pretty exciting. Wow. That's great. Okay. Does anyone else have anything else to add for public and community affairs tonight? All right. The next item and the last item on our agenda for tonight are board member comments. Do any board members have comments any additional comments they'd like to make tonight? Director Bleasner?
So the only thing, just to follow up on the request in regards to the equity data and looking at that piece is, I don't know if that can get on the agenda. Ideally for the potentially where we have a little more time on that Saturday so that we can really dive into that a little bit and have some time. So I just wanted to put that forward. I'd prefer it not to just be a written thing that comes, but actually is dialogue that we all get to have.
Yes, I agree. Dr. Holman, perhaps we can talk tomorrow about that if you have a minute. I'll email Diane, schedule time. Okay, Director Stewart? You're on mute. Sorry, I may have mumbled. Director Stewart, you're up.
There we go.
Thanks.
Is that better?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that in addition to us trying to get ourselves trying to move in the right directions, I think one of the important things is to be working with the state, not only OSPI but also the governor's office to have them start looking at the idea of reevaluating or reexamining the ways that students and staff are evaluated and changing the testing and grading processes, because everyone knows that this pandemic thing is a mess for education. The kids don't like it, the parents don't like it, the teachers don't like it. No one likes it. But I don't think we should be hemming ourselves in to the traditional systems of grading and the mandated courses and credit requirements. I'd like to make sure that we're starting to reach out to folks in Olympia to make sure that that message is being heard, because no student should be any more anxious about a grade than they are normally. Some of us took it more seriously than others, some of us less. But that said, I think that may be one of the avenues that we have to continue to really push, in addition to trying to get the kids back to school and to get the teachers vaccinated.
And if I could just jump in here, WASDA does have some efforts occurring on that platform with the state. So I'm not sure exactly when that bill will be heard, but I will try and bring an update.
Thank you, Director Sage. Any other board member comments for tonight? Okay. I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes. I just wanted to provide a quick update for the community. The board continues its work on crafting the first equity policy for the district. Tonight, from 5 to 7, in lieu of our normal study session, the board had its, it was our third or fourth training that a series of trainings we've been conducting with Puget Sound ESD on equity and as part of our work to draft this equity policy. So although there's not been a regular agenda item for that during our business meetings, our work is ongoing. We're taking this very, very seriously, and we're going to get this done right. Okay, that was the last item on our agenda for tonight. Our upcoming board meetings are on this coming Saturday at 8:30 a.m. The board will be having a study session that is held remotely. That meeting will be broadcast just the same as these meetings are. So you'll be able to access that if you want to view it through the district's website. Dr. Holman, would there be an opportunity for those who would want to, I don't know if anyone's ever done this, to call in and listen? Is that also that same line? Is that open for this
Yes,
meeting?
it'll be the same number.
So the same phone number I provided at the beginning of this meeting, if you do not have internet access, you will be able to call in and listen as well. And that, again, that'll be held remotely. On February 8th, the board has a study session that is held remotely, followed by our board meeting at 7 p.m., also held remotely. And just as a reminder, under the Open Public Meetings Act, all in-person board meetings are not permitted until the end of the declared emergency or further action by the legislature or governor. The board will continue to hold board meetings remotely until further notice. We've reached the end of our agenda, 9:17, not too bad. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Anyone?
So moved.
Thank you.
So moved.
A second.
Moved simultaneously by Director Bleasner and Director Stewart, seconded by Director Carlson to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 Okay. I think that's unanimous. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you again to all of those who submitted public comment. We are reading it. Please continue to do so. And for those that want to give televised public comment, djenkins@lwc.org. Please do so by 1 p.m. on the date of the board meeting. Okay, good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.